Coming to you live from Studio 6 in Seattle, keeping you up to date on technology while enjoying a little whiskey on the side. With leading edge topics, along with special co-hosts to navigate technology in a segmented, stylized radio program. The information that's going to make you go, Now sit back, raise a glass, and welcome to TechTime Radio with your host, Nathan Mumm. Welcome to TechTime Radio with Nathan Mumm, the show that makes you go, Technology news of the week. I am Nathan Mumm, and on today's show, we have a focus on invasive technology with our bad big brother. Terminator 2 is in real life. We have a special guest expert joining the program, James Riddle, expansion from our episode 4 episode where we talked about CRISPR. And then we have what's going on what I found on the web. And we're going to be talking about the TikTok crisis, that everybody's either removing that or saying that it needs to be removed. In episode 3, we talked about India removing it on one of our top 5 stories, and we said that India had banned TikTok, but now other companies in the United States are doing the same thing, so we'll be talking about that also. And then, of course, you're going to want to stay with us all the way through the episode so that you can take a look at our whiskey review that we have coming on up, and we should have our pick of the day. So, Jonathan Mumm, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me back.
Yes, appreciate that. Mike, our scheduled guest for this time, is at home in a little bit of our COVID-19 recovery area where he's being quarantined. So for people joining the program that may not have heard last week's episode, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a technology generalist and enthusiast who likes to dabble with computer technology, gadget technology.
Of course, we always need to introduce our wines because that's a part of our program. So we are going
and we've been drinking because we're certainly not drinking wines today.
Oh, did I say wines?
You did.
Oh, no, I mean our whiskeys. I have been drinking a little bit, maybe. Okay, so we have straight Tennessee whiskey here. We have a Pritchard's Tennessee whiskey. We have a Larceny, and that is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And then we have over here, you brought in a Tennessee straight whiskey. What is that?
Yes, so you may notice that most of it is gone, as this is one that I particularly enjoy. It is another Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. The theme for the whiskeys today, 1792 Ridgemont Reserve.
Okay, so I'll just tell you that I already know one that will probably be eliminated. It's my plastic tops theory. So if you have a whiskey and it's got a plastic top and not a cork, normally it's already kind of a loser.
And which one has our plastic top to get us started here?
Our plastic top would be the Pritchard's Tennessee whiskey. Now, wow. As a co-host here, it doesn't look like you finished your whiskey tasting.
That's observant of you. I did not finish it.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was a bitter before taste, after taste.
Did you get any specific flavors out of that whiskey, or were you too distracted by the alcohol burn as it went down?
Yeah, I was pretty much distracted by the alcohol burn. That was, whew. They will not be receiving a certificate of congratulations. I'm sure of that. That is some of the, most unique whiskey that I think I have had. And I will never buy a bottle of that. But I'm sure we can take a look at as we continue on. I think
Benjamin Pritchard's makes some higher quality whiskey than this particular bottle that we have here today.
Yeah, I'll never try it. But okay, segment number 1, and that is Bad Big Brother. Bad Big Brother. All right, Bad Big Brother. Here we go.
Bad Big Brother?
Bad Big Brother. Do you know of a bad big brother?
I do. I had one.
You had one? I had a little brother. So as we continue on, we're going to talk about the Skydio. Okay,
is that like a Ski-Doo?
No, not a Ski-Doo. It's a Skydio. For $99, the Skydio 2 is taking pre-offers right now. So you have to put down a minimum of $100, and this is phenomenal.
So what is it?
So it is a drone. It is considered the best known for a selfie drone, which means that it can fly by itself and that it can actually track a target. So you can have a certain device that you have that it will track around. It'll do different lengths, different heights. It has cameras built into the unit itself so that it can actually detect objects when it's moving indoor. They have a video of it indoor going through the factory that they have, where they build these in Redwood, California. So that's their main headquarters. And it can take a look at the infrared, the information, and actually scale out a pattern when it's flying itself. But
would it be good for if I wanted it to take a video of me with my TikTok dance?
With your TikTok, well, we got TikTok dance going on up here in just a little bit. TikTok is another subject. So this is so much like Skynet. Have you ever seen the Terminator 2 movies?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so this is like in the battle scene that you see the very beginning with John Connors, and he's trying to save everybody, and you have these drones fly on in. It's not the Terminators that are shooting them, but it's like the drones that are flying out. And this company is essentially competing with the Chinese drone company. So we're talking about a lot of China today. That's called DJI. That's the equivalent to the same thing over here in America. And essentially Skydio has ambitions to work with the government and produce a drone that will be able to comply and provide drug enforcement agency cameras, be able to work with the Army for standard short-range surveillance drones. Adam Bry, who is Skydio's CEO, was also a founder of Google's drone delivery project, so he's very familiar with drones. He essentially, his goal is to create the most autonomous drone-based security process in his devices that he makes.
So does that $99 deposit get me a drone that comes with any missiles here?
So it does not come. So I know we talked a little bit about this pre-show, and I know we may have different opinions on this, but it's very interesting because the Skydio drone was just used in Cholula, California, where it won FAA approval to fly beyond an operator's line of sight, and it was marked with police, and there were police drones that were common during the recent protests.
Surveillance, or what were they doing exactly with them?
They were doing surveillance, taking a look at cameras and recording stuff, making sure if someone was protesting peacefully that they would be allowed to protest peacefully, and if they were looting that they would be able to
get some good facial recognition on the looters and the people that were,
or just video. I don't know if that does face recognition, but
Sure.
What's really nice about this is this drone on the back side of the case that has a specific device where it will actually land on the case. So it's called case landing. So if I flip my case over that I actually carry the drone with, it will come back and auto land, so I don't have to worry about landing on it. There's a beacon orbit that you have, so as you're walking around, if it goes out of range, it will come on back to the beacon orbit that you have with GPS sensoring, so it can track you. You could put that in your pocket, and then as you're skateboarding or doing any extreme sports, the drone will be there, able to take a look at what you got going on.
Now, I've heard of some of the Alaskan pipeline using drones like this to take the aerial footage that they used to have to send people out to go take those photos of. Sounds very much like that.
So I've done a lot of research, enough that I know that I want to get my money as much as I can to get one of these version 2s that are out there. I already have one drone that's out, but the version 2 is quite a bit more enhanced. It has, again, a lot of the autonomous driving aspects of camera angles and different items. They're also looking at having producers use these for movie shots. And if you just think about it, if you want that aerial shot of downtown Chicago, downtown Seattle, instead of having to have a helicopter fly on by, you get one of these drones, you put it up there, and boom, you got yourself some over the air footage of the city, and it sounds great. So personally, I am very excited about having this technology, and I'd have no problems having 2 or 3 of these at my house.
Now, what would you use them for at your house?
Well, I could use them for security.
Well, the missile-free version, right?
Well, there's not. So I think I'm not worried about Well, I'd love if Terminator 2 like really happened and all these robots came down. That'd be just totally. I would totally enjoy that. But I'm not too worried about those aspects. It looks like everything's self-contained within the environment.
Well, it seems like quite the opportunity to just be abused with an invasive technology for what I see as not quite enough of a reason to give up those things yet.
The company is working on a set of ethical principles to use drones to be released this summer, including topics about privacy and community engagement.
I mean, I think of Terminator when I think of these drones still. I think of a robot, and I work in the line of IT.
Yeah.
I'm used to having a printer stop working because it's a printer, and printers do that type of things. And then I have to go and fix the printer and fix the IT other devices that are broken. And I know that these things break and these things have malfunctions, and I don't know if I want something flying and following me around when it could malfunction.
If John Connor could save us once, then if we get out of control, I guess he can save us again. Unless you watch the newest Terminator and then he dies in like the first 2 minutes.
But we don't
Spoiler
talk.
alert.
We don't talk about the new Terminators.
The new Terminators. Okay, so this is time that we need to go to a break. So I'm going to go out and say, as a Terminator 800, which was Arnold, was what he'd say, right? He says, so I'm going to let everybody know that we will be back. I'll be back right after these commercial breaks.
Right now, kids are learning in their kitchens
and dining rooms
and bedrooms.
Families are redefining the word school.
It's pretty inspiring.
It's why at Xfinity, we're committed to helping kids keep learning.
That's why we're working 24/7 to keep our network fast, reliable, and secure.
We're providing affordable internet access to low-income families
through our Internet Essentials program.
And this is pretty cool.
Just say education until your X1 voice remote
to get free K-12 educational content.
It's that easy.
And you can learn more at xfinity.com/prepare.
Welcome back to the show. We're excited to have an expert on the show today dive into our CRISPR technology. But before we do that, and we find out about genetically edited humans and genetically edited food and a little bit more information of what goes on during these processes, it's our second tasting. So we need to go with our second whiskey. I'm sure glad that we're done with our first Benjamins. So we are now moving to the Larceny. It has a nice cork top.
Okay. So we have a 92 proof for this second whiskey, the Larceny.
Okay.
I'm getting some notes of pepper.
All right.
And the third whiskey will be slightly higher proof, so we'll see how that compares.
Well, there you go. Okay, but now we have our interview special. This is the segment we call Ask the Experts. I have with me James Riddle, Vice President of the Institutional Services with Advarra. And I'd like to talk to you about CRISPR. We talked about that on our last week's show, and we got a lot of feedback that people were interested to learn more. And I only know so much, so I am coming to you as my expert. I appreciate for you joining us. James, tell me a little bit about Advarra. Lots of big words, what you do for them, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, in brief, Advarra provides ethics review oversight for the pharmaceutical industry. So if you think about what public accounting firms do for big companies to audit their financial books, Advarra provides that service to the pharmaceutical and device industry to oversee the research that they're conducting. So research into new drugs, research into new devices, new techniques like CRISPR that we're going to talk about. But Advarra is the world's largest integrated ethics review board. We provide our oversight of all manner of research, including genetic transfer and gene therapy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And for me personally, I've been involved in research ethics for about 20 years at various locations, both in private and nonprofit public institutions. And my particular area of expertise is reviewing clinical research protocols and advising institutions on how best to devise their research in an ethical and productive manner.
All right, great. I just got to hang out with you and play games, and I thought we were on the same level. But I got it. You're here, and I'm down here, at least with the CRISPR technology. So we did try to talk a little bit about that, and we had lots of great feedback. Like we said, people wanted to learn more about that. So give me a little bit about the gene splicing process, a little bit kind of an overview of what CRISPR is.
Yeah, certainly. So most of the treatments that we have today for different diseases, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, etc., are all chemical compounds. So the things that the pharmaceutical companies have devised to have a certain chemical reaction inside your body. And usually those chemical reactions are temporary, right? You take a pill every day, you feel better, you feel less worse, depending on what's going on. And eventually your body will digest or excrete those particular chemicals and the effect wears off, which is why the people who have high cholesterol, they have to take a lipid treatment every day for the rest of their life.
Okay.
So that's the most common way that pharmaceutical companies can treat people, is by giving them a drug, or utilizing some kind of a device, but putting a drug and you have to take it. Now, the challenge is that it's really hard to correct genetic disorders with a drug. Like if something's fundamentally wrong with your DNA, probably most people would be familiar with the bubble boy disease, right? You've seen the movie with the kid who had to live in the bubble because he was immune compromised.
Yep.
And if he got a cold or whatever, it would kill him because he had some genetic defect. Well, a drug, it's very difficult for a drug to go in and actually fix a genetic defect. And so for many, many years, scientists were looking for ways that they could actually correct a genetic defect, because we've been able to learn over the years that DNA is made up of strands, and everybody kind of sees on the TV, you got the double helix with the little twisty thing, and it kind of all fits together. And you see periodically on the CSI shows or what have you, that they can bust that DNA strand apart and be able to tell certain things about people, things like hair color, age, etc. Well, for some period of time, we have known that certain viruses will impact your DNA. And so scientists were able to figure out ways to use viruses to go in and tear apart little bits and pieces of your DNA and put them back together. And that's how they cured the bubble boy disease, right? So you don't see kids with the bubble boy disease anymore. They've actually got a treatment. And those treatments are commonly known as something called gene therapy. So if you think about drug therapy, device therapy, there's gene therapy.
Okay.
Gene therapy involves some kind of genetic manipulation with the idea that it's going to try and fix you. So CRISPR is just the latest generation of gene therapy techniques. So rather than using a specific virus or a specific mutation that they can do in the lab to fix your genes, CRISPR, they basically take the CRISPR will target a certain part of your genetic profile, and you can program the little CRISPR guys, if you will. They're not quite nanobots, but if you kind of think about them like that, that might be a good way to think about it. But CRISPR will go in, it'll take your DNA, it'll take it apart, and then it'll allow the DNA to stitch itself back together in a way that hopefully corrects the problem.
Okay.
So
all right.
So here's the big challenge, and this is kind of what you were talking about on your last episode, was what are the moral and ethical dilemmas that surround CRISPR?
Yep.
And in any kind of gene therapy, whether it involves CRISPR or not, the biggest challenge that most folks will have problems with is that you can't undo the gene therapy, right? So if you think about, you've got some kind of disease, they give you a drug, eventually you're going to excrete the drug and it's no longer in your body and the drug effect wears off. Not the case with gene therapy. Like if they go in and mess around with your genes, you've had your genes messed around with. And some of the largest concerns when you do gene therapy in humans is what's going to happen to your offspring. Would you pass some kind of genetic abnormality onto your offspring? Or if something goes wrong with the genetic splicing or the crisping, if you will, if something goes wrong with that, how do you undo it? What happens? Because you can't necessarily just press the undo button and all of a sudden the person goes back to the way that they were.
So let's say if you make a mistake, can you go back in and then re-edit that DNA strand again? Or is it really kind of a one-shot type of deal?
You can, but if you've ever had a stuck zipper on your shirt, right? Once you have to pull the thing apart to get it unstuck, it never quite works the same way again.
That's right.
And DNA works about that same way, right? It's all stitched together in a certain way. And it's stitched together in the way that you were meant to be created with the stitching, right? It's there for a reason, and the doctors can figure out how to undo it. But sometimes, it's not undoable once you've had the gene therapy, and it doesn't always work, which is why most of the gene therapy technologies go through years, if not decades, of preclinical trials. They tested in animals and mice, rats, things of that nature. To perfect the technique before they do it in humans.
So they've tested this in mice and gorillas, that the research that I was doing. Is there any mice or gorillas that are running around with super hormones, or a little stronger gorilla, or a little quicker mice? What's happened on the current testing that's been done?
Yeah, I mean, what happens in the animal testing, and first they'll do simulations. Most researchers will do simulations involving just cells. So they'll take cells from the animals, or they'll take cells from the humans, and they'll perfect the technique in the cell, just on a cell culture. So they don't have to utilize animals until they've satisfied themselves that they've taken the process as far as they can without putting it into a living organism.
Okay.
Then they'll start off with mice and rats that are purpose-bred for purposes of doing medical research. And most of those mice and rats at the end of the research study will either live out their natural life and pass away of natural causes, or they'll be euthanized at the end of the project, depending on what's been approved by the Animal Ethics Committee. For most of the higher level species, like dogs and primates, that undergo gene transfer testing, most of those animals will live out their life in a sanctuary of some kind after they've gone through the experiment, because the researchers want to see long term what's the effect, right? Not just what's the effect tomorrow or what's the effect next week, because it might have fixed whatever genetic abnormality was there, but they want to make sure they didn't break something else. And in order to do that, you really have to observe the critters over a long period of time.
All right, so explain to me this a little bit. The CRISPR molecule, it finds a string of DNA and then it locks on and makes a cut. So this is all through surgical tools, or does the CRISPR ability slice that gene and kind of cut and paste items into that? How does that exactly work?
Yeah, so it isn't a physical device. It utilizes various what's called vectors. Typically, those are made up of viruses. It sounds a little scary, given what's going on with COVID and everything like that.
Yeah.
But that's how the scientists can utilize the CRISPR technology. They piggyback on top of the virus, which will then get into your cell. It finds the DNA, the specific space in the DNA strand that needs to be edited, and the vector will go in and do that little splicing. So it's not a physical tool. So it's not nanobots, not yet. Okay. Give that a decade or so, and we'll be talking about nanobots getting into humans. You can do little microbots in the lab now to go. They've started doing nanobot technology into cellular, just in cell cultures. Haven't seen that yet in humans.
Okay, and so speaking of humans, we haven't had any real CRISPR testing done in humans that we know of, at least that are documented at this time. Is that correct?
At least that are documented. So first of all, we can talk about controlled clinical trials.
Okay, let's talk about that.
We talk about controlled clinical studies that are done and sponsored primarily by the National Institutes of Health. So National Institutes of Health funds most of the innovative and startup research, but some of it's funded by private foundations. Some of it's funded by independent for-profit companies, including the organization that has the license to CRISPR, to sponsor their own research. My understanding is that we are just right on the cusp of going into human trials with CRISPR, first in human trials. But you've also heard anecdotally that other folks have used CRISPR to edit and splice human embryos, as well as there was an article that came out of China here not too long ago about a doctor that did designer babies, able to clone. So I don't recall if he used the CRISPR technology or not, but there was just because it isn't in the news doesn't mean it isn't happening.
Good old China, they like to create stuff and spread it across the world. If you listen to certain people about that, right?
Yeah. So what I can say is that at least here in the United States, the federal government has some very specific rules and regulations about what scientists can do relative to genetic manipulation in humans and genetic manipulation in animals. And both of those are areas that Advarra oversees, that kind of research. You mentioned biosafety committees. That's one of the things that Advarra will oversee, that research to make sure it meets the federal regulations and has the appropriate safeguards in place. The listeners should make no mistake, right? I mean, this whole idea of editing your genes. It's risky. Right? I mean, you can't undo it. It's not the same as taking a drug. But if you can use gene therapy to cure some kind of genetic abnormality, and the listeners can just go and Google genetic manipulation to cure blindness. There's a gene therapy treatment that's been approved by the FDA, and it cures a particular kind of genetic abnormality that causes blindness. You get the treatment, you can see again. I mean, it's just phenomenal what can be done. No apparent side effects, right? Because all it did was just edit your genes, and suddenly the genetic abnormality is gone. So it's amazing technology, but it's not without its risks. And so folks should proceed with the appropriate amount of skepticism and caution if they're thinking about going through some kind of gene therapy study or gene therapy treatment.
So if I get a Google ad that comes on up and says that I can contact my local CRISPR gene splicer, since I've been looking at it online, I should probably be a little cautious before I do that.
You might want to raise an eyebrow or two before you go down and volunteer for the latest gene splicing study.
So how long has CRISPR been doing this testing? I couldn't find out exactly when it started. Is this like 5 years, 3 years? How long has CRISPR actually been doing testing in their certain DNA codes that they've been working with?
Yeah, so the CRISPR technology in various forms has been around for about 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
And of course, they started off with doing cellular manipulations, being able to splice and dice cells. Then they moved into animal models where they're doing it in mice. But gene therapy, so CRISPR is just a more advanced mechanism for gene therapy. Gene therapy, or the manipulation of somebody's genes for some kind of a treatment, that's been around for 25, 30 years. So we've been doing that for a long time. It's just CRISPR makes it more precise. The technique is more precise, and it can get more focused on a particular area of the genome to fix more issues, potentially.
Okay. So what's that one thing that makes you go,
So first of all, I'll start off by saying I don't lose any sleep over the above bar utilization of the technology by researchers and physicians
Okay.
In the context of clinical research and the delivery of standard clinical care, right? It's an amazing technology that is on par with with the X-ray, with MRIs, with CT scans. I mean, what you can do with the technology to improve human health is just amazing, and I would imagine that most likely it will be used in a above bar ethical manner.
Okay, that's good.
But the thing that makes you go, is that the CRISPR technology can also be used to do genetic manipulations that really have nothing to do with human health. You can go in and potentially improve or change eye color or physical characteristics. You hear a fair bit in the news of people concerned about designer babies, right? That is technically possible. Whether it is regulatorily allowed or not doesn't mean that it won't happen. Because just because you have a law against something doesn't necessarily mean that people will follow it.
Absolutely.
And it also doesn't mean that there wouldn't be some unscrupulous individuals that would create designer kids on behalf of parents that had the ability to pay for it.
So I can make the next Hulk and Iron Man. I could do my whole Avengers characters. I could just create them all through gene splicing, right?
I mean, you could. And if you wanted to talk about genetic manipulation doing really wacky stuff, just go down to the pet store and see all the glowing blue fish that you can go purchase. Right?
Okay.
I mean, that's how they create those things, is they go and they do genetic manipulation. You want to think about all the advancements that we've made in food technology with genetically modified organisms.
GMO food. Yeah, that's a real popular food, right?
Yeah. So the GM is genetically modified.
Yep.
The treatment for the blindness condition, the treatment for the bubble boy syndrome is genetic modification. It's the same type of activities. And so as a society, we accept that in food and we accept that in animals. But there's a line that you cross, or that you want to have drawn, in my opinion, for human use. Okay. And where that line is certainly up for people to debate what is right and wrong and what should be done, and what's the difference between what we can do and what we should do. So to be continued, which is interestingly not a technology discussion, but rather an ethics discussion. And so what we can do technically has far stretched for going well beyond what most ethics individuals would say that we should do.
I'd love to have you kind of be our go-to person on some of this technology as different things break. So I appreciate that very much.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for having me on. Make sure you have a nice shot for me after the segment.
I will absolutely do that. And our co-host will have an extra shot too. So that would be fantastic. So thank you very much. And James, I wish you the best and have a great day. Well, Jonathan, that was a interesting interview there. Hopefully we don't make any zombies. We start splicing people to bits and pieces, and then we're going to have a Walking Dead outside our house. But if we do...
You've got drones for them.
I have drones for them, so I will be safe. So I will have nothing to worry about. That will shoot tranquilizer darts at them so that they can all be taken care of.
Yeah, that was really insightful from James, and hearing his line of work, because it's one of those topics and fields of work that you don't think about if you're not involved in that field, but somebody's out there doing that. So I'm glad they are.
I've been acquaintances with James for a while, and it's always interesting when we get some technical talks about different stuff, and I'll talk about hardware and PCs and network, and he talks all about the medical field, which he's been a part of forever. So that's great. Well, it is time for us to take a commercial break again. So we are going to do that. But when we return, we have our counting down of the ticking time bombs, or as other people call it, TikTok issues regarding security, and our segment that we have called What I Found on the Internet. So I'm your host, Nathan Mumm. We'll see you right after these breaks. Thanks.
Your business deserves the same expertise as that of a Fortune 500 company. If you need a CIO-level service, why hire a full-time staff member at $250,000 a year when you can get this on-demand service for fractions of the cost? Get an on-demand CIO working for you to protect and keep your business running. To find out more, go to www.ee-services.com. That's ee-services.com.
Welcome back to TechTime Radio. I'm your host, Nathan Mumm, and we're starting our third segment here. So that means, of course, we are starting with our third whiskey tasting. So, Jonathan, this is your whiskey that you brought from your house.
Yes, this was the 1792 Ridgemont Reserve Barrel Select Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
And you seem to like this one a little bit since it's been drinking a little bit. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm going to need to get some more of this. This is a small batch aged 8 years.
Oh, wow. And
this was the highest proof. But you are not reacting the same way that you reacted to the first two.
No, it's a cork top, right? So that's the key. Whenever you have anything with less than a cork top.
And it has an actual canvas wrap around the neck of the bottle too, so when that little bit drips, it doesn't go all the way down. It gets absorbed by the canvas, which is a nice touch to the bottle.
Oh, this is good. This is going to have to go on my shelf. No. Well, not that I know that that's the one I'm going to pick, but wow, compared to the other two, that's a very nice sipping whiskey. I get a little bit of ice in this, sitting on the back porch. Oh, I can see the sun go down in the beautiful end of the day.
And so even with all three being a straight Kentucky whiskey here, there was...
Two people need to figure out how to redo their whiskey, and one of them has a pretty good set. But I don't want to give away because we have our final reveal coming up for Pick of the Day. So
all right, we'll save it.
By all means, I don't want to say that this is a landslide. So we'll take a look at that. But now moving on to our third story. This is going to be a little bit interesting because I think we're going to kind of get into it a little bit of differing opinions. So we're going to talk about TikTok. What I found on the web. TikTok is all in the news right now, from the president and people wanting to ban it to India banning it a couple weeks ago.
Now, have you used TikTok?
Oh, yes, I have.
I have not.
And so I talked about it, I think, in episode 3, because it was one of our top 5 stories of the day. So we talked about TikTok and the India banning. And it is a waste of time. Absolutely a waste of time. I don't know how the...
So no different than Facebook or Instagram then.
So I'm not an Instagram person, so I don't do the Instagram stuff. So I don't get looking at different pictures in different areas. But it is like YouTube on steroids. We have banks that have decided that they have to have it removed. We have a company that sent out a memo to all of its employees and then sent out another memo afterwards saying that they didn't mean to send out a memo that we're going to talk about. We have some U.S. politicians saying that it's horrible. So let's go here. We got Wells Fargo. They sent out a statement that said, due to concerns about TikTok's privacy and security controls and practices, and because corporate-owned devices should be used for company business only. Now, I agree with that. So forget the rest of this aspect. If he just said, hey, if you got a company phone, don't put TikTok on it, you know what?
If the company pays for your phone, they can choose what goes on
absolutely.
It, right?
So I have no problems with it. We talked about that on some other episodes, so totally get that. But they have directed their employees to remove the app from their device. Then we have an email that was sent out by an A to Z company that delivers Prime items within 2 days if you sign up for their club. So
using delivery drones,
well, not quite yet. He thinks that's what he's going to do. Based up here in the Seattle area, and they kind of have an A to Z type of philosophy. But I don't want to say Amazon because that would be calling them out. But they sent out email says that due to security risk, the TikTok app is no longer permitted on mobile devices that access Amazon email. The company said in the note to the workers, at this time, using TikTok from your Amazon laptop browser is allowed. So I guess you could use the browser version from your laptop and on your phone. It could be a productivity aspect. If they're just saying, hey, we don't want you looking at TikTok videos all day long, totally get that. But Amazon said that the message wasn't supposed to go out. The morning email was sent to some employees, was sent in error, and said in a statement that there is no change to our policy right now with regards to TikTok. So
that's a little bit vague in that retraction email.
It was kind of vague, right? So I guess they still don't want you playing it if you have it on a phone, maybe. Again, I kind of like Wells Fargo. Hey, if it's a company device, don't load it. We can tell you what to do. Now,
having worked in IT, I've had to manage employee company devices previously.
Absolutely. We used a product from IBM called Mass 360. We managed everybody's phones. We could kind of track where they were at. We could get pings to them. Absolutely, you've done that.
And I've done things like block March Madness on the network level.
What? What did you do at your company?
Blocked March Madness.
You don't allow March Madness to happen at your work company?
Oh, this was at my previous employment, but what I had to do was block it on the network level.
What?
Because each person was trying to stream it locally to their laptop.
So did you host one then, so that everybody could watch the stream?
We ended up taking one of the spare laptops and going into the conference room with the large projector.
Okay.
And putting it up on that screen. But otherwise, each individual's stream, we didn't have any WAN optimization, so it was just killing the bandwidth. I
take 4 vacation days a year. That's the Thursday and Friday, the first week of the tournament of the NCAA tournament, and then the second weekend of the NCAA. That's by far the best television ever. Every game is a buzzer beater going down. Man, it's like a drug to me. That is fantastic. Okay.
So all these corporations blocking it, though.
So that's fine.
Yeah, they can do that.
Then we have a CNN article, good old CNN, on July 9th, says that TikTok is a national security threat. U.S. politicians say, and it's a very vague article. So let's get into this. India banned TikTok. Now we're at an area where other people are banning it. Let's actually take a look at the facts and see what we can actually unwind from the facts themselves versus the hysteria. So TikTok is owned by a Chinese-based company called ByteDance, based in Beijing, China. So the capital of China. I've been there for the Beijing Olympics. I was over there, and so I've been in the city itself. It is equivalent to China's Facebook. So we have America, we have Facebook over here. China essentially has ByteDance as their social media platform. TikTok has faced scrutiny for its security. Another company that has also had some security issues, a company maybe called Zoom. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but had many security issues with Zoom.
And Zoom worked really hard to try to fix a lot of those after those were uncovered. So
let's take a look at what happened here, too. TikTok states that it has addressed and solved the identity security issues, and they have taken cybersecurity suggestions. A company called Checkpoint.
I've heard of them before.
Okay, they're a huge cyber company based in Israel.
Yep.
So they are all about cybersecurity in Israel. Found that the app's security vulnerabilities allowed hackers to manipulate content, delete videos, and reveal personal information.
That's pretty bad sounding.
So once this was known, kind of like Zoom, TikTok addressed and solved each reported weakness, and Checkpoint verified that a solution was reasonably deployed to ensure that its users can safely continue using the TikTok app.
So Checkpoint now gave it a clean bill of health.
So, yep, they said there's problems, sent them to the company, just as a lot of people did with Zoom, and then TikTok spent a lot of time taking care of those, and then they went back and re-verified that a solution was in place.
And a lot of software companies end up having vulnerabilities. Nobody's ever heard of a Microsoft bug for Windows, or...
Hey, Microsoft doesn't have vulnerabilities. They're pretty good at it. Microsoft, as a 10-year ex-employee at that company...
Precisely.
So we spent a lot of time there on security. But yes, we would have some security information. As soon as we had that, that's why Patch Tuesday is kind of known in the industry of computers, where we patch every Tuesday. Microsoft comes out with patches, and as long as you're patching your stuff, you're pretty safe.
Because people are going to try to find vulnerabilities in everything.
That's correct. So, then what's the concern then of TikTok? So what are these people doing? So in the tech industry, a lot of people just make up crap. And it is the most infuriating aspect. Where I may not always be as opinionative as I could. I try to look at both sides of everything, so I may not have a strong opinion about one thing. I may be kind of in the neutral, but I have a huge opinion about this, that there is no difference in people using TikTok, because when the app comes on up to install, it tells you what access it's gaining on your phone. So it says it will gain access to this. It will gain access to this. It will gain access to this. All you got to do is click deny and don't install the app. You don't have to worry about your items being taken care of.
Well, I think that from what I've seen, a lot of the concern isn't necessarily that hackers are going to get in and view your data at this point in TikTok's life, but rather the lack of trust regarding where that data is going and how it's being used.
So you're telling me that this company in China, do you have more concerns about the data in China than you do with Google, with Facebook, with Amazon? All these people are just whores of collecting of information from everybody out there. I mean, I go on and I start looking about whiskey, and all of a sudden I go to sleep at night and I turn on my phone, and for Google, I got 16 different things for whiskey in there that I can purchase, right? Or I look at something else.
And it's not even on your own device. I'm looking up something on my phone, but Google's going to serve my wife ads on the same things that I was just looking at. And she says, "Oh, I know that you were looking up this today." Yep, because it was going through just monitoring the IP from our internet connection that was.
So I saw another connector on that main IP.
Yep.
And they said, okay, that router's sending out X, Y, and Z. Here's some more information. Anybody? Okay, so TikTok is in my opinion, no more aggressive than Facebook or any other social media app that you give permissions to. If you don't understand what you're doing when you download an app and you give all the permissions to your phone to somebody in the United States, Israel, Australia, China.
Well, most of the apps don't work unless you accept all the permissions.
That's where you need to understand the permission levels, because in TikTok, they have different permission levels. So you can actually set up your profile so that you have all of your information and your videos are private. People have to subscribe, and you have to create a yes acceptance for them to see your videos. But what happens is these teenagers and people maybe don't want to have a small group. They want to send their video out to everybody. So they click yes and accept this information, which is essentially allowing people to have access to the app because they allowed it themselves.
This is reminding me of when Facebook started becoming open outside of just colleges and the college community. You now had parents and grandparents who weren't as technology savvy joining Facebook and all of a sudden sharing their information publicly out on the internet without even knowing it. I think that same thing is happening here with people just clicking yes on their apps, and because they want to be part of the fun trend that they see their friends taking part of.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. It's kind of our fake news area. So we're going to talk about what fake news happens. If I hit that, it'd say fake news. But here's what we got. A woman who originally posted the warnings to Facebook on the 11th of February, this was what kicked off the TikTok, confirmed that her daughter had been texted by an unrecognized number and that this action formed the basis of her Facebook post, which said that essentially TikTok was selling the social media app and allowing everybody to have information, and that her daughter was a victim of TikTok. So she said that she determined that this was correct because the only social media app her daughter said that she had loaded on her phone was TikTok.
And Facebook, or no?
Just so the woman said that the only thing she had on her phone was TikTok. So,
okay.
So somehow the person that posts this goes to their daughter and asks their daughter what's on their phone. Doesn't necessarily say that she verified it, but her daughter said that the only thing she had on her phone was TikTok. So that this is the first phone I've ever seen that only has one application loaded on it. So she had the phone. So she must, I'm sure, call everybody. She probably doesn't text. She probably doesn't use WhatsApp. She has none of those other devices on there. She only loaded TikTok. So she decided to spread the news to the news agencies, which picked it up that TikTok was a vulnerable act. When she was asked to substantiate the claim, now she says that she doesn't remember what she said.
No, of course not.
Even though there's a record that has it posted. So before you go on out and start posting something on a social media site that says this is happening regarding an application, by all means, you should at least have someone verify it, look at it. Otherwise, you get that whole fake news spreading on out there about TikTok.
And I think a lot of it comes down to who do you trust? I mean, with your fake news button, you talked about earlier that there was 2 drone companies, a U.S. company making drones, a Chinese company making drones. And then you were talking about Checkpoint, an Israel company that was doing the validation of the security concerns about TikTok being owned by a Chinese company. So with your fake news, at some point, you have to determine who you're going to trust with your data. Is that going to be a U.S. company? Is that going to be a foreign company? And if so, what foreign countries are you going to trust with that data? And what political interests does your government have with that country that might be impacting the decisions made about that application and what's being allowed?
Which is interesting because I guess Trump decided to jump in people about reviewing TikTok. And again, I bet you if TikTok was made by Germany or Spain or Sweden or any of these other companies, there'd probably be a less angst to say that there's a problem with the application. But because it's based in China, which they have a huge population growth, huge area, now all of a sudden we're taking a look and seeing what could be construed as hackers or trafficking of information, when really if you're going to open up that can of worms, then you have companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and a whole bunch of other companies you better be looking at, because they're all mining your data too and providing information about what you want and what you don't want. So don't point your finger at a poor company that's in China or India that's collecting your data when you can't point that finger back at you. You know, that's something my mom taught me. You never, when you point a finger at someone, there's one pointing at the person, and there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. So be careful about what you do.
And China doesn't let Google and Facebook get through the Great Firewall of China either. So
you absolutely can block it if you want to, but I hope not, because there's some really cool videos on there, and most of them are made by Americans. So until we have an American company that can do the same type of stuff, quit it, because it takes up 45 minutes of wasted time to look at those videos. So that's what's more important to me. If I can't see my videos, then it's going to get me upset. So we have our last segment here with the pick of the day, but I have got 3 little warnings here that I need to take a commercial break. So we'll be right back with TechTime Radio. See you in a bit.
Right now, there's over 1 million Walmart associates doing their best to keep our nation going while keeping us safe. We've given masks to all our people, and we're helping our customers practice social distancing in stores. We've implemented shorter hours so we can sanitize our stores from top to bottom, while also restocking our products. But if anything, these days have reminded us why we do what we do. Because despite everything that's changed, one thing hasn't, and that's our devotion to you and our communities. We're working together, in store and online, through pickup and delivery, to make sure you can still get the essentials you need. And as we move forward, know that our first priority will always be to keep you and our associates safe.
So, Jonathan, we've gotten through our 3 segments today, and that means we are at the most important whiskey reveal, and we like to call this our pick of the day. And now our pick of the day for our whiskey tastings. Let's see what bubbled to the top.
Well, my pick of the day, I have to say I'm a bit biased because it's the one I brought and the one that I've been drinking a lot.
Okay, but why did you like it, though? Let's make sure we understand why we like the pick of the day, because there's a segment just on YouTube of just the pick of the days. Let's go through here. You got the Tennessee. What didn't you like about the Benjamin Pritchards?
It was a lower quality whiskey that had a lot more of that alcohol burn that you don't want if you're having a whiskey straight. It might make for a fine whiskey being blended with some Coke where you've already got that harsh acid being mixed with it.
If you got to mix whiskey with something else, that's probably not a good whiskey.
Well, it could just be good for its purpose.
This would be great if I ran out of gasoline and I needed something to start my vehicle.
I think it's a great option for mixing with Coke, that first one, which is the Benjamin Pritchards.
No, this was horrible. Let's not say this was good. This was, I don't, visit our website at www.pritchardsdistillery.com. We will not be visiting that site anytime soon. I would block that website before I would block any TikTok. Okay, so then we had the Larceny. This is a nice looking bottle, though. 92 proof. Jonathan E. Fitzgerald. Just think of that guy. That guy probably slaved to death, and now they put his name on the bottle, and he's a legend there for coming up with his whiskey. 92 proof. You didn't like that. Why didn't you like that?
Oh, it was certainly better than the Benjamin Pritchard whiskey.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, this is what you take to run a vehicle. I got that.
No, this one was a decent whiskey.
It has a cork top.
It did have the cork top. You're very high criteria for
my whiskeys.
Yes, for your whiskeys.
That's right.
And this was a special small batch as well. So those sometimes tend to be more experimental with their flavors rather than one that's more mass produced that is going to have a consistent flavor of a whiskey. So it's a small batch. It ended up having more of that unique flavor.
Look at this. So it has a keyhole, and this is a key. See the marketing aspect of that? That's pretty good. Okay.
Good branding.
Yes. And then you had your small batch. And let me see the bottle of that, because I didn't really get to see the bottle of that.
This was our oldest aged.
Look at that. It's going to look great on the shelf right over here. What do you think? I'll put it right there. Yeah, you don't have to take that home. This will be, thank you very much. This is for a gift. I didn't realize. So this is 1792 Ridgemount Reserve Barrel Select Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So this is more mass produced. This is a rich flavor velvet is what they have on the back. Okay. It's bottled by Barton Distilling Company. Well, that was maybe I had too much whiskey there. Okay. Yeah, that is my pick by far. I think we gave it away as we were tasting them. We had that. So congratulations. They'll receive a nice little email telling them they won pick of the day. I still haven't heard back from any of the whiskey companies that we send these to. So they're probably like, yeah, we know our whiskey was good or whatever. But yeah,
I wonder if you'll get more of a response if you emailed the ones that you didn't like, telling them that you disliked it.
Send the clips here. Pritchards will probably send me a little lawsuit statement saying, how dare I? You had no right to tell about our product. Okay. Well, those are our picks of the day. So if you're watching at home and you picked the 1792, then you are a winner. If you picked something else, then you may be a winner, but we just didn't like it. So, Jonathan, thank you very much for coming on back. I know that next week we have a guest. Her name is Gwen that will be joining us, so that will be fantastic. I've worked with her, and she's an expert in technology, account management, and technical expertise. So if you need anybody to deploy an Office 365 deployment, she's your gal. She'll get that taken care of. So we're going to be excited to have her in studio. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have a chance to have you come back and co-host with us and and have a great time.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody at home, have a great day and enjoy a little whiskey on the side. Thanks. Thank you for joining us for TechTime Radio today. I'm your host, Nathan Mumm. Hopefully you enjoyed talking technology and, of course, having a little whiskey on the side. Remember as we leave, Mumm's the word. Thank you for listening. If you like the show and want to learn more, please check us out at techtimeradio.com or on YouTube or your favorite podcast service. Just look for TechTime Radio with Nathan Mumm.